She-Hulk Attorney at Law is created by Jessica Gao and stars Tatiana Maslany, Ginger Gonzaga, and Jamila Jamil. After mild-mannered attorney Jennifer Walters gets into an accident, turning her into a Hulk, she will work through her new status as a superhero lawyer. I'll be completely transparent. This was not one of my more anticipated Marvel outings. I do know some things about She-Hulk from the comics, but for the most part, I was relatively blind, and from the looks of the trailers, as everyone pointed out, it did not look good. The effects looked awful, it didn't look funny. I thought I was going to hate this show from the get-go. But I will be honest, after Miss Marvel completely surprised me by not being a bad show, I wanted to give this show the benefit of the doubt. And 9 episodes later, even though She-Hulk Attorney at Law isn't awful, it's not very good. Alright, so before we get into all of that, what did I legitimately like in the show? Well, for starters, the commentary, especially the fact that how comedic it is, I do like in this show more than other Marvel outings have pushed similar morals. Whereas Black Widow and Captain Marvel's social commentary felt sort of shoved in because of the movie's time length, because of the fact that this is a TV show with 9 episodes, it feels like they're allowed to go more sparingly with the commentary in each episode, especially with just how comedic they handle it. And even though, yes, I will get into how it's done comedically in a bit, how the commentary is and what it says about how we treat women in a workplace environment and just how pandering it feels to be in that situation is there, and it does get its point across. And because the show is much more grounded, even though it is very goofy, it does get the point across way clearer than some of those other Marvel movies. The acting is not half bad either. I don't think anyone gives a fantastic performance, but everyone gives the correct amount of energy to their role, enough to make the characters that they're playing entertaining to watch. And yeah, as cliched as it sounds and as hollow as it sounds, it was great to see Marvel Legacy characters in this show. For the most part. I loved seeing Abomination and seeing how he grew since his time as the villain in Incredible Hulk. I will always be here for Wong. This is Phase Wong, and I am loving every bit of it. And yeah, let's get into the part that's no longer a spoiler because it was in all the promos for this show. Daredevil is back in action, and I love it. True, he's a bit more comedic in this show than he usually is when he was in the Netflix shows, but it's just great to see Matt Murdock back in action, both in the courtroom and in the suit. And not only that, but Charlie Cox actually has fantastic chemistry with Tatiana Maslany. And I mean that as in, I would not mind in the slightest seeing more of these two characters interact throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If She-Hulk is in Daredevil Born Again, I would not mind it, and in fact, I would welcome it. So those are like some of the standout things that I really did like in this show. What didn't I like? Well, let's start off with the effects, because the effects in this show are really bad. Mainly it is because of She-Hulk. She never looks like a real person whenever she's in the show. It feels like they took the face of Tatiana Maslany, photoshopped it onto the actual person who body doubled for She-Hulk, and then just painted her green in Adobe After Effects. It looks really silly, and the uncanny valley is constantly being broken. And to be fair, it's not just She-Hulk who has most of that blame. Most of the effects when it comes to this show, especially with other characters like Bruce Banner and even with Daredevil, aren't that good. Hulk suffers from the exact same problem as She-Hulk in that scenario, and Daredevil, whenever CGI is used in his fight scenes, just looks like a rubber dummy being thrown around. And the comedy in this show, I would say it's hit or miss, but for the most part, it's a lot of misses. To be fair, every single episode does have at least a couple chuckle-worthy moments, and in the case of Mr. Immortal in, I think it was episode 5, and the middle of the finale, which is so funny, I will not give it away, those moments actually had me crying laughing. But for the most part, the comedy in this show just never lands, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the actors' very, very, very over-the-toply silly performances and very silly tellings of those jokes. Or maybe it's because the jokes in the show are just not written well and are pretty much just statements with the inflection of a punchline. And when it comes to the fourth wall breaks, for the most part, thank you finale, they don't really serve that big of a purpose in the story outside of the fact that She-Hulk did it in the comics. They feel more like studio notes than actual lines of dialogue and jokes that Jennifer Walters would say. And I say this because even though Tatiana Maslany is good in the role, She-Hulk and Jennifer Walters just don't have a lot of personality in this show. Especially when you compare to the comics for the most part, where in that, Jennifer Walters is more mild and timid, and when she is She-Hulk, she's actually very outgoing and very confident. But in this show, she's more or less the exact same person, whether she is Jennifer Walters or She-Hulk. And sadly, both personalities are really bland. You don't know her likes, you don't know her background, and because of that, you never really get invested in the character of Jennifer Walters, and any charm that comes through the screen is because of Tatiana Maslany's performance, not through how the character is written. But truthfully, I do think that the biggest reason why I just could never get into this show is because it just feels so rushed. Because for the most part, each episode of the show only has like less than half an hour to completely tell its story, it never feels like there is time to breathe or time to let a joke sit or time to really and truly develop the characters. It feels like the entire thing is on fast forward with the writers trying to throw everything at the script, everything at the story as they possibly can. And because of that, by the time the finale happens, even though for the most part I enjoyed the finale enough, it doesn't feel like anything was truly accomplished. And everything that was accomplished feels like the definition of a Deus Ex Machina. So yeah, I'm sorry, I know this show has its fans, but I just could never get into it. The performances are good, the commentary is very grounded, and when they show up, the Marvel Legacy characters are done justice. But the show is so rushed, most of the comedy falls flat, the characters are never developed, and the effects never look convincing. If I'm being honest, I'm more disappointed by this show than mad at it, because I can see a lot of potential here. A superhero lawyer show sounds incredible. It sounds creative, it sounds fun, it sounds funny, and it sounds like it can bring up some actual really good thoughts on the nature of superhero movies and how they present the public as opposed to how the public would actually react. But it seems like, for the most part, this show tries to do away with all of that in favor of bad jokes, bad drama, and bad character development. I'm going to give She-Hulk Attorney at Law Season 1 a C-. It was watchable, but that's all I can really say for it. Well guys, thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments down below, how excited are you for Black Panther Wakanda Forever? I can't wait. I already have my tissue set up to cry and everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best. And don't forget to click subscribe and click the bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.